Hi, thank you for being with Unity Church of San Marcos. I'm Reverend Paula Skiles, and this is Sunday, September 4th, 2022. Thank you for being with us as we begin our service this morning. We'll start with a wonderful song from our musician David, which you open up with.
Good morning, I'm David Rosenblatt. And I have a song, it's a brand new old song. Anyway. A number of years ago I wrote a song centered around the Tibetan mantra, the Heart Sutra, which is about the heart, but it's also kind of a very mystical song about gone beyond, and about form and emptiness and wisdom. But I was called to do a song about loving action and love in action, which comes from the heart. So I think the song might fit today a little bit. Love in action is a way of moving from being into doing. Loving action is a form of moving from being into doing. Love in action is a way of being while moving with love into doing. The act of being becomes doing while moving with love into action. Doing is also a form of being, and about that form, it's a form of being and doing. Form is empty, and that emptiness is form. What down awakening, so be it.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate your wonderful inspiration and your beautiful music. Thank you.
Very much.
So this morning, I want to start with a little story. So there's this young girl, and she asked her mother, she says, how did the human race get started? I mean, how did they come into being? And the mother answered, well, God made Adam and Eve. They had children, and so was all humankind made. Oh, so the little girl took that in and went, oh, okay, all right. Well, a couple of days later, she was talking with her dad, and she thought, I'll ask him. And she asked him the same question. And her father answered, well, long, long ago, many years ago, there were apes from which the human race evolved. And now, needless to say, this kind of confused the little girl, right? And so she went back to her mom and she said, Mom, you know, the other day you told me that God created the human race, but when I talked to Dad, he said that we developed from apes. And she says, well, how is that? What's going on? And so the mother said, well, dear, the answer is really pretty simple. I told you about my side of the family, and your father told you about his side of the family. And so, which of these, mother or father, is after your own heart? And after your own heart is the title to this message, and it's meant to honor our Labor Day weekend. And it's about working together, building a culture after your own heart that makes a fulfilling future a reality. Now, Jesus in the Bible had a lot to say about family. As a matter of fact, he had an extended family, and he called God Father. Now, if you think about it, that makes for one really big extended family, right? So anyway, one particular story that is about people working together, whether we realize it or not, I'll make it clearer, it starts out like this. Early in his ministry, Jesus needs a boat to get away from the crowds, and he's just left Galilee and he's on the sea, right? He needs a boat. And he's been healing people and doing all the work, but there's just so many, and he has to get away for a bit. He gets on the boat, he goes out, and then he goes up to a mountaintop, takes his disciples with him. And from there, he decides to go home. Now, what's occurred after all this is they come back into his hometown, right? Where's Nazareth? And they were so many people that had heard about what was going on that he couldn't even eat. They sat down to a meal, and there were people calling for healings and needing strength or needing this or needing that, right? And the other side of that story is there were also a lot of people in town who were gossiping, let's say, because there were some individuals who had come from Jerusalem to the temple, and they were saying, oh, no, this will never do. He has Beelzebub, all right, which is, all right, so let's see what's going on here. When his family heard it, they went to restrain him, for people were saying he has gone out of his mind, from Mark 3:21. And the scribes came down from Jerusalem, said, he has Beelzebul, and by the ruler of the demons he casts out demons. And an ensuing discussion. Now, think about it this way. Jesus is talking about Satan not rising up against himself and people being forgiven of their sins except for one. And that is the blasphemes against the Holy Spirit, because which is the eternal sin, because they have said he has an unclean spirit. We're going to take a moment just to kind of dissect this for a second. Now, my Bible teacher, Reverend Frank Judici, long ago says not to interpret the Bible out of context. And so we start with this portion of the story all the way from Galilee all the way to his hometown in Nazareth, right? And we're looking at a progression of consciousness, but we'll get to that. So he's standing there And think of it this way, Nazareth is a really small town. There might have been 300 people of Jewish faith in that town in the day when Jesus was living. And it was a small town. There weren't that many people to begin with, right? But most of those people he was related to. In those days, people married and intermarried cousins and different ones. So a lot of this is a whole lot of family stuff. Anybody have any family stuff? I mean, I've experienced it more than once, can I say. And so here we have his mother and his brothers and sisters, and they're all up in arms because, why? Because now they're saying he has an unclean spirit. Oh my God. That means he can't go to temple. That means they can't be around him. That means that he's going to be cast out. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. And so they're trying to get to Jesus and get him to shut himself up. All right? And so they're standing out calling him from the house that he's in, because he's just down the street. You know how it is in these small towns. Anybody ever lived in a small town? Maybe you haven't. But I'm going to tell you, everybody's in everybody's business. Everybody. And it's because they care, right? All right. And so he was told his mother and brothers are standing outside waiting for him, to which he replied, "Who are my mother and my brothers?" Mark 3:33. And looking at those around him, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. And whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother." Okay. Now, one way to view this is Jesus is speaking literally. Hey guys, the ones of you that are trying to live principled lives, you're my brothers and mothers and sister, okay? But say, for example, he's saying, in order for us to pursue our spiritual path, some of us have to literally leave our family and their home and their life that we've been living and create a new experience for ourselves. One where their beliefs and their vision of who we're supposed to be isn't constantly drawing on us. And it's not necessary to make our family wrong for their beliefs. It's just that sometimes when our soul needs to unfold its wings and try to live truth from after our own heart, we just need some space to let that happen for our hearts and our wings and our soul to take wing. But the cool thing is that there is always some treasure in all the things that they have been teaching us or that we have learned. So we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. George Bernard Shaw once said, "If you cannot get rid of the family skeleton, you may as well make it dance." So in this sense, is Jesus disowning his family? No. It's more than likely that he was also speaking metaphorically at a much deeper level, on a spiritual level, which is how I find most of what is going on in the Bible gives me, rather than just thinking about the literal, gives me that energy for making it a personal story, making it something I can relate to rather than something that happened so long ago that it's just ridiculous to even think, okay, does that have any relevance in my life? And so he's trying to make a point. The Christ, that Christ power and presence of Jesus is making a point, and he's not disowning his family, who, as you know, care and love and are there to support him and trying to keep him from being cast out. And so to me, Jesus is saying, okay, walk with me here. He's saying, as we realize that each of these characters represent a part of our own being, the mother represents those aspects of our thinking and our beliefs that bring forth or energize, and brothers and sisters are those aspects of those same things that work together for our good. And so anytime we have these beliefs or these attitudes or these thoughts that move through us that work for our good, which is, as he says, who does the will of God, who does the work of God. That is you and I following that guidance and following that internal guidance. Now, it's important to mention that Jesus needed a boat to come out of Galilee. Galilee literally means rolling, tumultuous, and rolling energy that is just like constantly moving, right? A circuit like. And so a boat represents a belief or a thought or an idea that comes to us that can carry us over this rolling, tumultuous time or thought process. So the Christ, has all his disciples in this boat, and they're moving towards a mountaintop experience, which is essentially the boat represents an idea of spirit that comes to us, whether it's peace or whether it's love or joy or a sense of purpose about something we need to be about. A great idea for a new business or whatever it is, something that is inspiring, that moves us into this mountaintop where we find this consciousness of connecting to God, where we're experiencing all those qualities that we seek, the strength, the comfort, the healing, the awareness, the connection to a greater good, okay? And so then he goes to his hometown, Nazareth. All right, we're looking at essentially getting back to everyday life. So he's called his disciples, they're trying to, and they can't even eat. There's so many multitudes of thoughts. Ever have things go in a circle in your brain? And you can't even eat, which means in this case, you can't take in that nurturing. You can't take in those things. And he's like calling a halt to it and saying, hey, wait a minute. You know, God does not need anything else. God is simply the presence and power within me. He's claiming and declaring for these individuals, for the mothers, those energizing thoughts, those thoughts that bring forth. He's holding this attitude and this thing for us. The Christ is holding that for us. And saying, Satan, it's not about having Satan, because God does not work and Satan does not work against himself. It's about that energy that you and I have when we're connected to be able to bring forth something powerful. When we're working with ourselves, literally, and we're able to work with others at the same time. And so he calls that great multitude of things and says, nope, not going to do it. The eternal sin, the blaspheme against the Holy Spirit, saying he's unclean. Now, what could it possibly be about that? What do you think that might mean, blaspheming against the Holy Spirit? What does it seem to you to be?
Not taking care of his needs.
Not taking care of his own needs? Okay, that could be one. Anything else? All right. In my thought processes, where I came from in this morning, and it could change the next time I hear this message, because Spirit always moves in the present, is that is essentially those places in us when truth is trying to open us up, trying to get us to go forward in some direction or a path, and we're closed to it, or we're too afraid, or we're listening to all those voices that are like those demons that suck us dry, that just take the very life out of us. You know, you're not good enough, or who do you think you are to hope for this, or whatever is that voice. And I know we all have them. that is literally going to keep us from experiencing the power and the grace of Spirit. Can you hear the truth of this? Christ is speaking to them on a spiritual level, and it's not, he's trying to take them out of all the stuff that they're all focused on. And it's about helping you and I to train our minds to let that light of God that is in us come forward, and to be able to receive that direct inspiration and guidance and then move with it instead of closing down or not even listening or not even being aware that it's there. That eternal sin, if you will, that cannot be forgiven. That means that for as long as we are in that space, we can't experience that forgiveness, that grace, that healing, that wonder and the strength of Spirit moving through us. And so essentially we are closed off. We are rejected, if you will, or that part of us is rejecting. Divine guidance, the Father. Jesus called God Father. That guiding, protecting presence. The mother here, we all know her as Mary, but she's not named. She's simply mother, and there's brother. They're not named. So when they're in the Bible, when they're not named, they represent an aspect of our mindset rather than a specific. So they represent a whole mindset rather than one belief system. So when we train our minds to be open to that light that is within each of us, and to it gives it energy, all right? We know what to do. How many times have we prayed, God, what can I do? I know I have, once or twice, maybe 3 times, really seriously all the time. You know, there are a lot of roads in the USA that are unpaved, okay? And if you've done a whole lot of traveling, or even maybe not, there's a road in Alaska that has a warning sign. It says, choose your rut carefully. You'll be in it for the next 50 miles. Choose your rut carefully. You may have heard others say, well, my mind is made up and I'm not about to change it, right? Okay. Now, they have a rut that they have decided on, and they're going to be in it until they eternal, so to speak. Whatever criticism or whatever was going on in their mind. All right. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross once said, people are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and shine when the sun is out, but when the darkness sets in, their true beauty is revealed only if there's a light from within. And this whole message is about that light within you and I, moving forward, working with others, working with our own being, our own thought processes, moving and helping us to labor for great good. I don't know about you, but there are times in my faith when I can get in a rut, and maybe I haven't had my prayers answered, and I think, oh, I've failed, or somebody else is failing, and I think about someone else is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're wrong, or I'm wrong, or I'm feeling ineffective. I mean, we get those thoughts. I don't know about you, but I have them every now and then. And when our prayers aren't answered immediately with exact results, right? Immediate. We're so used to this in our culture, in our society. We've built a culture of immediate satisfaction, right? This is the time when we need that bolt to carry us over that tumult, that inner rolling of our emotions that is just so much to keep us busy with our thinking. But let us not confuse faith with a magic wand, all right? Keep in mind that the more you and I turn to that light of God within us, we will be freed from anxiety or needing to have an outcome look a specific way. Control anyone? Okay. Whatever you have to do, you will understand what is required of you. And you will be able to follow through with ease and perfect timing. I'm holding that. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin said, above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are impatient of being on the way to something unknown, something new. And yet it is the law of all progress that is made by passing through some stages of instability, and that it may take a very long time. Let me say again, if you and I are looking apprehensively at the world around us, at what's happening in our lives or the world at large, trust in the slow work of God so that we can perceive the will of God, which is always after our own heart. Let your mind be open and free. Circumstances change. Conditions change. You and I change. Not often, but we do. We can grow and we can expand and we can unfold as long as we let that light within our being move and shine forth. Our lives, our church, our faith are always in a state of progress. And if we let that natural state of instability, as Pierre mentioned, it could be that we would close off to that in fear, seeing it as a closed door, when in fact, it's simply a way of progress, is that sometimes things take a little longer. It's not necessarily a no of unanswered prayer, which can set some of us off on a merry, not so merry rather, scenic tour, okay? Here's some thoughts to consider as we close our service today. If you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together. Take those brothers and sisters, those thoughts and feelings that are working with God in us, and give them the energy. Here's the truth. Behind you, all your memories. Before you, all your dreams. Around you, all who love you. And within you, all you need. The light of God within you, or me, is always shining. Train yourself to rely on this source of good in your life. Let it show you the way. That Christ energy is always pointing towards that good of God. And together I'm hoping that we can build a culture after our own heart that allows for more possibilities of a greater future and a greater reality. God bless you.